We were involved a few years ago, some will remember us, SHAC, State House Action Coalition. And we put a big battle on around this area and many other areas. And there was a form of genocide in Glen Innes, and that was in Esperance and Madeline Avenue. It was all Maori and Island people that lived in Esperance and Madeline. And what did they do? They just tossed them out overnight and said, get out of here. You're not wanted here. But I'd also like to say that next Saturday week there's an election on. And every 3 years, to my way of thinking, these maggots crawl out from under the ground and they come and they say, vote for me. You don't know who they are. You never see them again for another 3 years. They call it democracy. But Mana Party is different. We're out here fighting for the people. And we hope that Mana spreads out into all the other areas of New Zealand and build up a mass movement of the people. Because big business, all they think about is maximum profit. And maximum profit means maximum exploitation. And that's the name of the game. Like my son said, Patrick, we're near the universities, we're near everything. They don't want us here. Down in Tripoli and all the streets in Glen Innes are called after North African countries where the Maori battalion fought and gave their lives. There's lots of families here in Glen Innes have lost uncles, grandfathers in the Second World War. And they were told that when they come back they could have anything. Now they're throwing them out, they just use them. And we have to stand up and fight. And what I'm saying to people, I'm saying to everybody here, if you know anybody that's been evicted, tell them not to leave their house. Get in touch with Mana. We'll fill the place like we have in the past. And if we're not going to leave Glen Innes, and if we have to, we'll occupy the parks. We'll put tents up in the parks, thousands of them. And kia kaha, stand up, fight back. The future belongs to us. We have an obligation to fight for our mokapunas, our tamarikis, so they're not eating out of rubbish tips like it's happening overseas. Kia kaha.
Kia ora, Jimmy. And I see another man here, the rent rebel. Where's Len Parker? Where's Len? Len barricaded himself into the house for how long, Jimmy? How many years was it nearly? 2 years? And that was the fight. That was the fight against the national government the last time round that forced them to reduce the market rents down to an affordable level. But we had to fight them that time, and people had to occupy their houses, they had to barricade their houses, and they had to refuse to leave. And that's what we should do here in GI. Give a big round of applause for Len, the rent rebel. And he'll speak after me. I'm Joe, I'm from Unite Union. I organised the KFC down here. I organised the McDonald's down here. A lot of our workers living here will never ever be able to afford a house in New Zealand. Our generation of workers will never have a house of our own. And we can't afford to pay the rent. We can't afford to pay the rent on the wages that they pay. This is the real reality of people in New Zealand at the minute. We have a housing crisis. And instead of evicting working class people from our houses, we should be building tens and thousands of houses for working class families. That's what we really want to see. That kind of program would also create tens of thousands of real, well-paying jobs for the young people who've got no jobs at the minute. That's what Man is saying. Let's build houses, 20,000 state houses for people. Let's get our people back to work, and let's pay them a living wage too. And the last thing I'll say is that all over the world at the minute, people are standing up to the rich. They're standing up to the greedy 1%, criminals like John Key. And in the city centres all over the world, they're occupying the city centres. But it's time, ladies and gentlemen, that we started occupying the hood as well. We need to occupy GI. We need to get hundreds of people here to support the tenants. Not one house, not one eviction. We will fight this until we have housing for everybody in New Zealand. Thank you. Now give a big round of applause for Len Richards, the rent rebel. Len Parker's.
Even forgot the name, and that's probably a good thing because there's no individual heroes. We're all heroes if we stand up against these evictions and against this iniquitous stuff of not having proper housing programs. We fought against the national government when it brought in the market rents for nearly 9 years. Now the Labour Party didn't do much to help us until 3 months before that election. They then came on board with what we were fighting for was going back to what we used to pay in the old days when they first built the state houses, of the 25% of your income, an affordable income-based rent. But that didn't go for everybody. There's still a lot of people left in the private housing market paying these market rents on inflated house prices of the greedy speculators who have bought up the houses, and people looking for new state houses that weren't being built. In the early days, when the first Labour government came in, they built nearly 40% of the houses being built in 1938 were through the state advances and through the Labour government's policies. Now that we could go back to that, and why shouldn't we? They borrowed the money from the Reserve Bank at 1.2%, and they lent out money to people who wanted to buy their own homes at 3 point something or 4 point something percent. Now today we're trapped by the big banks. The banks have been falling over, bailed out by the taxpayers here and overseas, and we still don't have a housing problem, a proper housing situation. And here we have people being thrown out into the streets with not anywhere to go, moved away from their neighbours and their friends, supporting the local community here with the shops, and these people in the Labour government don't care, nor do act, nor do anybody who doesn't care about the well-being of people. Something like, I think it's nearly 98% now of the debt in housing is 98% of the gross national product. So a lot of people are going to lose their houses and be forced into the market where they need state houses. And those state houses need to be built not in their hundreds but in their tens of thousands. Now, to stand up against this, you really do need to be organised, because that's the basis of it. The people come together, support each other, occupy the houses, refuse evictions, and demand from these politicians, all politicians, that they take over this question of the housing crisis. Because following from that, or flowing from it, are all the other problems that we face. The depression, the suicides, the drug addiction, the diseases old and new that come back, the kids ending up in Starship Hospital because of inadequate, poor quality housing.
And nowhere to play.
And nowhere to play. You have no community facilities for them. So anyway, it's good to see you here. Stick together. You have to get out amongst the community though and make these points available to people, because you have to get the public on side. That's why when we had the rent strike, we had people saying, oh no, don't pay any rent, don't pay any rent. And we said, no, you've got to pay some rent, because people won't support you unless you pay the rent. They say, I'm living under a private landlord and I have to pay my rent. So we said, we're paying 25%, which is what was affordable, we thought at the time, and was related back to what was happening when they first built the state houses. Now those houses under the Labour government didn't happen because some bright politician said that we're going to build state houses. There were rent eviction organisations, anti-eviction organisations set up. The people that set up their own anti-eviction things, and that put the pressure on the first Labour government to think about a proper housing policy, which you won't get out of the privateers. Thank you.